GN. Friday. Today is 3rd of May. Daily levels. So we're at an important level here. First thing is we're consolidating in the 4 hour bands. So that can be bullish, but only if it breaks out from it. It needs to break higher. If you don't see a higher break, then it's not valid. And that puts us in a position where we're in this, what I've marked as a chop zone. You can see pretty clearly that above 60 is where we can see a more extended rally. And below 58.2 is where I think it unwinds to new lows. As you can see, it was support and resistance a couple times. And also when you zoom way out and go all the way back, as I've shown before, it's acted as a key level before. So if there's anything that's going to stop the market below 60, it's going to be that 58.2. I think once you get into the 57s, then we're just looking at a new leg down. And we're looking at, I don't know, right down. Like if it does go lower, I think, I'm pretty sure the volume distribution from the way up is centered right at this 52 area. If you look at that first leg up, yeah. If you look at that first leg up into the 60k range, 60 and above. So obviously this is one separate period of and phase of price action over here. And that level has clearly got massive resistance. So it's just a battle right now between bulls and bears. If the bulls can reclaim that lower end of the range, 60k, then you're back into looking at 60 to 70 as your trading range moving forward. If we don't, and we fall below, there's not really much in the way of support. There's really just a gap of volume all the way down to that 52 where we last consolidated. And if Bitcoin is in a 8-week, 9-week distribution breakdown, then I'd expect to see those levels revisited. But we'll deal with that if and when it comes. For now, it's holding, it's consolidating, it's moving up. And market is sort of cooled off, right? We have the spot premium, which we talked about and everyone talked about, and they all talked about how spot premium was bullish on the way down when it wasn't. It's bullish if we are rising. So currently it's coming off the lows. We still have a spot premium. That's good. But you need to see sustained rally with reclaiming key levels. So the most simple, really, really simple, is breaking above 60 and holding with a spot premium. Then it's going to push higher, right? And I expect that if 60 does break here, you're going to see a gap. I don't think you're going to see a breakout of 60 and a retest. I think it's going to leave a gap because obviously there's a lot of people betting on 60 being bearish. And if they're wrong, it's going to unwind pretty quickly on them. And they're going to have to close shorts and it's going to probably gap up to 61. And then if we consolidate at that 61 area with a continued spot premium, continued negative funding, it'll tell you that we probably push even higher. So I think with a bit of patience, the next big move is going to probably be quite a strong directional one. I think if we go below 58.2, right? If we go below here on the blue path, I think a lot more longs are going to have to unwind, and you can see quite a big move. I don't think it just stops at the lows, but your potential would be a sweep of the lows, potentially. More likely, I think, a trend down into the low 50s, as a lot of positions have to unwind. But in the same way, if that 60 breaks and holds, I don't think it'll stop just there, because then you're at a range low reclaim and you're looking at probably multiple legs up. So you'd be looking at a breakout, consolidation, probably a push higher, and probably a second push higher before it would consider cooling off. And I'd be looking at this area up here, which has plenty of liquidity resting from the breakdown. So they're the two areas. I think there's, and it probably, I lean towards a lot more chop in here. I lean towards more. I don't think anything happens today. I don't think we break out today. I think it chops up and down both sides and builds up more energy. And when that does come, I think the move will be bigger. So I'm expecting within this area, I'm expecting it to be choppy, both directions. If you look at the 4 hour, you can see how it's compressing in the bands. So that's a setup that is typically quite nice, as you can see over here. If it consolidates in the bands and is able to break above it, after a decline, of course, you can see a gap up and then an extended trend. Now, that one went to all-time high and kept going. It doesn't matter. It just means you'll have a move up. You might just get a couple legs up and Bitcoin continues to range, or you might get a push towards new highs again. But the same thing happens at most downtrends, right? So here, it was also consolidating the bands. Obviously didn't hold. It was also consolidating the bands here. Obviously didn't hold. So it doesn't mean, and you don't want to preempt it by bidding it there. It is, if you're going to use that setup, you need to wait for the compression to complete, a clear directional impulse, and the bands crossing towards green again. You know, you have to, if you're going to take that trade, you have to, you know, take the actual trade. Don't try and preempt it. Now, there is a big difference in terms of even the 1 hour market structure. We still have not broken that, right? The last 1 hour high before the ultimate breakdown has not been reclaimed. That is at 60.26. That's important, and that's an important difference. If you remember, when I went long back here, so I went long down here and rode it all the way up based on not just the 4 hour bands, which I showed a moment ago, but also a reclaim of key levels. So in this one, we did break back above the breakdown level. So we got above the breakdown level and we consolidated around there. And then when it started to break out, that was a clear continuation long. We don't have that market structure break yet. So that's something to keep an eye on. The impulse down into our ultimate low has not been reclaimed. So even though this consolidation looks good, it is not above the key level of 60, which is obviously going to have sellers, and it is not broken structure yet. So it's promising, but it's certainly not as strong as it was back in January. It's not as certainly not as bullish as it was back in January. In fact, if you go back to the January levels, it's actually much the same as this one, this first one. There was the breakdown level, right? And if I go to the 4 hour, we then look at it. The breakdown level was over there, which is on a 1 hour candle. And like 1 hour is the lowest you'd want to go for early indications. You do not want to go lower. Even 1 hour is a very, very low time frame, right? You don't want to be going below those time frames if you're trying to capture these moves, because obviously it's giving you a lot less margin of error, right? Because if this is correct and it reverses and we get another move, this is going to be a daily trend. Yeah, this is going to be like a trend that goes probably from 60 to 67. It might even go to range highs, 70, 72, 73. So it's not something that you need to rush into. You absolutely do want to wait for confirmation, right? Whatever form that would take. And so, with all that said, patience is needed. Don't want to be rushing into trades. Don't want to be rushing into any continuation or rejection trades while we're in that chop zone. Chop zone is going to be choppy. Consolidation below the break level. Sorry, I showed that. Consolidation below the market structure break level in the bands is not bullish until you get more confirmation. So we currently are, even though this does look better, everything looks good until it doesn't. And obviously, to be honest, it doesn't look that great. It's a pretty weak bounce off the low so far, all else being considered. But we have the 1 hour structure level not reclaimed. We have a consolidation below that. And, you know, certainly for me, my longs will be triggering above 60, not below. And as for shorts, you know, the path is laid out. The other thing I want to look at right now is There's a few things that I've been looking at. Here's a calendar of events that are coming up, which I'm going to post in. I'm going to post it in Trading Analysis and pin it maybe. This is just a bunch of things I was looking at this morning. First ETH ETF deadline, the next FOMC meeting, Euro 2024. Why does that matter? Well, it's a big sporting event, and you might see some meme coin narratives around, football or countries or whatever. I know there's been people talking about like country narrative because we also have the Summer Olympics. So I know there's like a USA meme coin, and that could be something to play from a narrative perspective. So it's good to know the dates of those. Euro 2024 is June until July. Summer Olympics is July until August. The next FOMC meeting after June is in July, end of July, 31st, I believe. Maybe it's the 1st of August? No, it's the 31st of July. I'm sure it is. Final ETH ETF deadline, right? That's the BlackRock one. That is on the 7th of August. The first ETH ETF deadline is the 25th of May. That's the ARK and Van Eck ones, I believe. Then you have the first presidential debate, obviously going to matter for Biden and Trump meme coins, plus general election narrative. And then the election itself, which is 5th of November. There are other things within this, but that's just a few that I've noted and taken down for now. And so, last thing I'm going to look at is Bitcoin equivalent range breakdowns. So I've got this chart here. What I want to look at is Bitcoin breakdowns from multi-week ranges. There have been a few of them across the history. So what's important here is Bitcoin has to have had some kind of uptrend, right? So it has to be trending up like we are now, because we're looking at the potential for, is this distribution, right? What are the odds it's distribution when it goes sideways? The point is, Bitcoin is a very momentum-driven asset. And so in all the time I've traded it, I've always known Bitcoin to be strongest when it's moving. But when it stops moving up, for whatever reason, you tend to get these sideways phases. And when you get these sideways phases, I don't remember a time when it broke bullishly. I don't remember a time where Bitcoin went sideways for at least let's call it 4 weeks. It's not exact, but it has to be multiple weeks. I don't remember a time where Bitcoin had a move up, then went sideways for a long time, and then continued to go up. Right? Not up, pull back, and up, but up and sideways. So often that ends up with a down move, and obviously we're seeing that now. So my question is this down move going to continue, or is it going to reverse? So we'll go all the way back. The first one that is of note is back in 2019. This kind of stuff doesn't count, right? This is just a blow off top. Bitcoin didn't really trade sideways, a couple of weeks there, but it's really just, that's a very typical blow off top complacency bounce. We're looking at distribution. Distribution's different. In distribution, price will hang around at the level for a while. So I'm drawing it here the week after the top. So I want to make sure there's a clear top, like a clear end of the uptrend. And then what happens when it goes sideways for weeks after. So it went 12 weeks sideways over here, broke down, and obviously that was the beginning of an extended downtrend. So there's one, not bullish. Second, 2020, we're rallying up. We had a clear final push here, sideways for 4 weeks. Again, we had a move up, and then price stops moving, and then it had a drop down. This one, to me, doesn't count because it wasn't breaking any structure. This was just a reversion of the COVID bounce. So that was more of a rally up, nice tight consolidation. This was a breakout. So the breakout would have got people getting long. Then 4 weeks of sideways, what happens? Flushes them out. Now I consider this one to be a bullish one, because even though it broke down from the range that it was in, it consolidated for a few weeks and then we went higher. So that would be like one potential path you're looking at here. So there's one bearish, one bullish so far. Bearish would mean it leads to a significant decline or many, many weeks or months of decline, right? 2021, I don't count this as the beginning. This, if you look at it as a whole, that was the buying climax. But this was a very strong uptrend. We had our first sell-off, and then it was this candle, to me, that was the top, right? Because that was the thrust after the first sell-off that was unable to make a clean new high, right? This push was clearly a new breakout. This was the first push that was not a clear, strong, momentum-driven breakout. So after that one, after that week closed, we then had 8 weeks before price broke down and obviously led us into that mini bear market in 2021. Later on, again, same thing here. Yes, we rallied up, but below all resistance, didn't consolidate for long. I wouldn't consider this to be a distribution or even a potential one. What we did have, though, at the top, obviously, was the final push into the highs, which culminated with this candle, which I should drag it actually across. There we have it. This was the final candle. So the distribution measurement begins after that. Once that week had closed, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, touching 5, 4 to 5 weeks sideways. Broke. If you look here, we actually broke a couple times below it, but it kept bouncing back up. And then convincingly on the 6th week, broke down. So that's three bearish and 1 bullish so far. Earlier this year, last year, we had our first rally off the lows. So we did break above previous levels and we rallied up into that local high and we consolidated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks sideways. And this is important because this is the point at which everyone was like basically wondering, are we back? Right? Is the bull market back? Are we going up again? Is it going to be up only? And so people were starting to get long and they got flushed out on that USDC DPEG. But that one was a bullish one, got reversed back up, and away we're going to the highs. This, I don't see any... Well, first of all, this wasn't a sideways correction. This was actually a slowdown trend. Then it rallied up, then it retraced back. So the whole thing was sideways, which is good, but it never had a breakdown, right? So obviously the point of this, I'm only looking at distribution that actually broke down to see, does it reclaim and go higher, or does the breakdown hold? There never was a breakdown here. It was a pullback into 25k, which was just a retest. This one that we had, obviously. So we rallied up. You can argue that the top was here, at the ETF launch, but we definitely topped at early December and went sideways for 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. And then the 5th week was the sweep. So I consider this one to be valid. And this again, especially with everyone talking about sell the news, the real question was, is this distribution? Tried to break down from it, failed, so that's a bullish one. And then where we're at now. So we rallied up into the highs, clear top here, next week, and then up until really where we're at right now, 5 to 6 weeks. This is our 6th week. This could hold, but we are breaking down from it right now. As we speak, we've broken it, and we're trying to gauge, is that going to be a continuation move? Is it going to lead to lower prices, or is it going to reverse, hold, and then take us to new highs? My reading on this is that even if it's bullish, it takes 2 or 3 weeks. So if it's bullish, you'll see like 2 or 3 weeks here, right? And then boom, away we go. And even if you go back to the one in 2020, it had that breakdown candle and it had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks or 7 weeks before it broke out again. So it still plays into the same idea I have of, I lean towards this breaking down lower, right? I do still think on balance, Bitcoin is, especially when you zoom in to a daily, I think on balance, Bitcoin is just retesting its breakdown level and lower prices will come, because that's what you should expect when you have a high time frame breakdown and retest. You do expect continuation, but if it's not going to, then you're going to see some kind of choppy grinding probably for a few weeks, and then that's going to lead us to our next breakout, right? So reiterates again that we're at that key turning point. Obvious to anyone who's watching, it's clear that we're at a very, very key level. Back to my point from earlier about the chop zone, right? That's where we're at now, in the chop zone. And why does all this matter? Because whether bullish or bearish, you can expect to see probably a couple of weeks of really uncertain price action. And if that takes you from 3rd of May till, let's call it the 20th of May, right? Or somewhere over here, the breakdown itself will probably come after it forms a sideways, right? Then it sweeps one side, sweeps the other, and then it eventually breaks down. I don't think it's going to happen today. It could. It would have to show real weakness. the thing is with these chop areas, it tends to chop, right? It tends to go sideways for a long time. And if it's bullish, guess what? It could look the exact same all the way here, except it doesn't break down there, it breaks back inside, chops around, and then away we go. So whether bullish or bearish, you're probably in for some uncertain sideways choppy action. Of course, if this 4-hour compression holds and we rally up, I still think that a clean impulse that holds above 61k can lead to a momentum move higher, right, to take out some of these stops. And obviously a clean breakdown, again, below 58.2 would invalidate all that. So the chop zone, the few weeks of sideways, you want to be watching really closely. How does it act between 58.2 and 60? Basically 58 to 60, right? In that area, expect resistance to be resistance and support to be support. When it breaks and you start to see impulse moves, I would not fade the direction of it, right? Again, if you break and hold above 61, I would expect pushing right into the 60s towards 70. If you break and hold below 57, I think we're seeing 55, 3, 2, and an impulse, an actual unwinding of positions. And then we go back to exact same thing. We wait for price to form a base, go sideways, chop around, and we trade it that way. So that's it. GM. See you all later on the live stream. Be 4 p.m. UTC, Casual Fridays, GM.